Yo, what's going on, fam? It's your boy Tahir Johnson, and we are back with another episode of the Cannabis Diversity Report. Today, I have got my good friend, Kristin Jordan, OG, super OG on the New York cannabis scene, here to talk about her background and the work that she's doing with Park Jordan. Kristin, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, Tahir, so nice to be with you.
Yes, it's certainly a pleasure, and I'm so glad to have you on here. As I just gave you that intro, you really were one of the first people that I've met when I came into the cannabis industry, especially as I started to learn about issues around advocacy and social equity. So it really is great to have you, stopping by the show.
Man, I can't even remember when we first met. It must have been 7, 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, you know what? It probably feels like it was that long, but I just came along in 2018, and I was still the guy in the suit. When I met you, I was still working at the bank at a canna gather, and I think you may have actually been speaking or something like that. But it's crazy how fast like things go in this industry, and I know that you haven't been around for that long. It's for one, like imagine seeing like cannabis actually being legalized now in New York, coming as somebody that's been advocating for this for a long time. How does that feel, first and foremost?
Man, I still can't believe it. And, as a result of the pandemic, we haven't seen too many folks out and about to congratulate each other. So it's been wonderful in the last month or so to see former colleagues and friends who have been fighting for legalization for years, and to finally be able to embrace and give hugs and congratulate each other a little bit and relish the moment.
Absolutely. And I know that you've worn a lot of hats in the cannabis industry and quite a few different experiences and all different things, from your legal background to real estate background. But could you talk a little bit about how did you get started? What made you get into the cannabis industry in the first place?
Yeah, Tahir, I think like many women in this industry, we are very agile, and we try to figure out what makes the most sense for us, given the time and place and political environment that we're working with. So I think it was back in 2014, we in New York were talking about a legal medical program. And in 2015, we had a program up and running, and applications were starting to pour in. And I thought there might be an opportunity for me as an attorney to help prepare those applications. Unfortunately, that window was very short, and I just wasn't able to garner clients at that time. And so I took that opportunity to really sit down and listen and learn and find out what else was going on elsewhere in the country. And it was a real education for me to understand not only how hard and challenging this is as a small business owner, but also to see what else was happening in the country. I was very fortunate at the time that a young man in Livingston, Kentucky named Michael Lewis, who was involved in hemp legalization. He was a farmer and a veteran, and was instrumental in getting the 2014 hemp bill passed with Mitch McConnell. Mike had reached out to me on LinkedIn, of all places, and was looking for a business partner. And so that was really my initial foray into the industry, was partnering on a hemp consulting business with a business partner in Livingston, Kentucky.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I didn't even know about that part, that you started out with the hemp side. And so even, I know that you really use your legal background a lot as well. I know I read about a few years ago and have had talked to you guys about like even filing a lawsuit against like Jeff Sessions for legalization. Yeah, that's a big case. Talk about taking it up as a lawyer. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so shortly after I got into the industry, I started hosting community and events at my law firm office in Koreatown on 32nd and Broadway. And at one of those meetings, there were a number of young men who raised their hands and let me know that they were interested in starting a nonprofit organization designed to help marginalized people get into the industry. That conversation led to the formation of the Cannabis Cultural Association, CCA, which then went on to partake and be one of the lead plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of how we impact communities of color with our racist and biased drug policy and drug laws. So that lawsuit is continuing to climb through the courts, and fortunately, it has not been dismissed, despite the federal government's lawsuits and motions to do so. The court still has retained jurisdiction and continues to hear testimony from the plaintiffs. So it's interesting to see how that is progressing.
Wow, and that would be amazing. And what could potentially be the end? What could be the potential end result of that case?
I'm not really actively involved in that matter, so I'm not following it as closely as probably I should to hear. But potentially, we could see some changes within the DEA and the way in which they interact and impart our drug policy laws. But we're seeing changes elsewhere in the country, and it's just a multi-pronged approach by activists all over the country, which is exciting.
Absolutely. And that is a testament to how fast things change, because I think at that time we hadn't seen any of these bills filed for federal legalization yet. So like you said, there are multiple approaches to trying to get towards that end goal. And I know, like you said, since I know you wear a lot of hats, and since those days at Cannabis Cultural, you've even gone on and had the opportunity to work at one of the largest cannabis companies in the world. What was that experience like, getting inside and working at Acreage Holdings, and what did you really learn from it?
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience, certainly an education on understanding the supply chain in cannabis. Prior to working at Acreage, I really didn't have a firm understanding as to how the supply chain worked. Being an advocate and an activist on the outside, it was certainly easy for me to throw stones at big cannabis. But until I worked there and really better understood how the supply chain works and what these big operators are up against, it really gave me a better appreciation as to what a working industry would look like. So I think running the real estate department there gave me insight into various verticals within the organization. Real estate touches on the retail aspect, certainly, and of course the cultivation and the processing. So it really allowed me to work with various disciplines within the company. From the green team that were the cultivators and the processors, and learning about how they worked not only indoors but in challenging conditions here in the Northeast, not necessarily environments that are beneficial to cannabis or promote cannabis cultivation. And so that was very interesting, understanding the different form factors and how they play a role in the retail aspect of the business was an eye-opener as well. And then also dealing with the regulatory and the government affairs departments in my role in real estate was really interesting as we look to grow not only organically through license participation and application processes, but also through acquisition and acquiring new operators elsewhere in the country. Really gave me great insight into how the regulations really impact how the industry will unfold.
Right, and like you said, regulations are super important, and real estate is critical to the success of being in the cannabis industry. And with your background as an expert in both real estate and law, you've now transitioned that experience to starting to being the CEO of your own firm, Park Jordan. So talk a little bit more about Park Jordan. What are you what are you doing there with your company?
Tahir, like you mentioned, I wear a lot of hats in the industry. And one of the things that I did early on was I started an education platform because I wasn't seeing, number one, women and people of color as subject matter experts. We were seeing a lot of white cisgender men, frankly, from the Pacific Northwest who were coming here to tell us how we were going to do cannabis on the East Coast. And I just knew that there were women and people of color who were educated in these areas and just needed a platform. So under my umbrella of Manada, we did an event series called the Cannabis Summit Series. And recently in April of this year, we produced the first Cannabis Real Estate Summit, which was I think a 6-hour virtual education platform, mostly dedicated to and geared towards real estate brokers and attorneys who would be servicing the industry as service providers. And what I learned from that is that because all of the big real estate firms are publicly traded, they're not serving our industry, and that lack of talent and expertise is sorely missing in cannabis. And while I would produce the Real Estate Summit, I had the good fortune of meeting my now business partner, Barrington Rutherford, who shared my role as head of real estate at Cresco Labs based out of Illinois. And in getting to know Barrington and sort of sharing stories about the lack of service providers who would help us source our real estate properties externally outside of our companies, we just knew that we could do this better, and we could bring our expertise to help the industry in a way that just isn't here yet. And so I think it was September 1st, we filed our organizational papers to start our entity, Park Jordan, as the first Black and Asian-owned commercial real estate brokerage company in the U.S., and specifically serving the cannabis industry.
Yes, and that's amazing, and it's incredible to see you two come together, leveraging that experience that you have and really jump out there. And as you said, it is important that in the industry that we have businesses and people that can service our communities and really understand that, they can meet businesses where they are and bring their expertise and give people the comfort of seeing somebody look like them. And I know from day one, I've always seen you kind of riding and putting on for women and minorities. And I know that you even, do work with you started another organization also, the Asian Cannabis Roundtable, where you've been focused on uniting Asian communities and educating about cannabis. What are some of the challenges that you think you face that you often hear from the Asian community around cannabis, like around the stigma or challenges in business?
Yeah. Tahir, I think I had mentioned to you a while ago, so I am from the adoptee community. I was adopted as a baby from South Korea, and my immediate family, we're all adoptees, and we're all different races and different ethnic backgrounds, different ability backgrounds as well. So we always grew up in an environment where diversity was really just our everyday life. And so for me, cannabis has always been an opportunity, or presented opportunities where I think I have some value that I can add. So, whether it be bringing education or other areas, legal expertise to the industry, I'm always looking for ways that I can help. And we started the Asian Cannabis Roundtable a couple of years ago because I need for a community of Asian people to get together. While my family is mixed race, I don't have Asian ancestry immediately in my family. I do know that other folks, friends and colleagues, have difficulty in explaining not only the medicine, but breaking down the stigma around cannabis in our traditional culture. There still is a lot of stigma and a lot of lack of knowledge around the plant properties and the medicinal value. And so through Asian Cannabis Roundtable, we hope to not only break that stigma, but provide education and, real data and fact-based information to the Asian community. In addition, I also see opportunities for us to educate the Asian community on the business opportunities. As you know, in New York, we have a very exciting social justice program and social commitment to economic empowerment for communities harmed by the war on drugs, for marginalized communities. And we've seen in other municipalities that have adopted adult use laws that the Asian community sometimes is uneducated and sometimes comes out against moving the industry forward. And we just want to get ahead of that and provide education and value to our communities so that they can partake in the health and wellness benefits and also the financial benefits of the jobs and career opportunities that we know this brings.
Absolutely. And, making sure that we do educate our communities really is key. Like education is the key to everything. Like you said, whether you're talking about economic opportunity or just really even being able to take part in the business, because cannabis is so complex and so new. One thing I can say I'm hopeful for is, New York's cannabis program, it seems like they're being intentional. They said they want to make sure 50% of the licenses go to social equity. So for somebody who's been there, advocating for cannabis legalization, what advice do you really have for new folks that might be coming on the scene? What are some of the first things they should do to be prepared to take advantage of cannabis opportunities in New York?
Tahir, as a New Yorker, as an advocate, as a medical patient, I can't be more excited for the regulators that our new governor, Kathy Hochul, has installed and appointed in these roles. For the first time in my lifetime, we see very senior leadership come from communities that have been advocating for marginalized communities for a long time. Chris Alexander specifically has been a leader in this area for at least 10 years, if not longer, and somebody that I count as a friend and a colleague and an educator for all of our communities. And I just can't be more excited to see the regulations come out, because I know that both he and Chairwoman Tremaine Wright are committed to not only providing opportunities for communities most harmed, but also making sure and instilling that those communities receive the tax benefits and the financial benefits to bringing those communities back to a place of dignity and respect, and just revitalizing communities that have been so decimated by the Rockefeller drug laws here in New York. So the commitment to 50% of the licensure going to communities most harmed, man, we've not seen this happen anywhere else in the country. And so this is really a historic moment for us as New Yorkers and as advocates to see that our voices have been heard, not only by the governor, but by the legislature, our elected officials. They're hearing us in ways that we never thought possible.
Right. And as cannabis, there's a whole industry and infrastructure built around, a new market that that's being created there in New York. As somebody that's been both an attorney and a real estate professional, what advice do you have for people that may want to approach that side of the business and get involved in maybe one of the ancillary business opportunities in cannabis?
Yeah, I mean, I think very early on, I realized how challenging this is, not only because of lack of ability to access traditional forms of capital, but also just generally, startup businesses founded by women and people of color have always had challenges historically. And so when we think about the industry, I think it's important for us to also include the ancillary businesses. It's the picks and the shovels that during the gold rush made fortunes for people. And so, you know, service providers and non-plant touching businesses, I think those are really exciting areas for people to get involved in right away. As you mentioned, I'm an attorney and a real estate broker. I just put cannabis on the front of both of those titles, and committed to educating myself so that I could hold myself out as an expert in both of those areas. And so I think after 8 years of hard work and a lot of reading and a lot of listening to smart people like you, I find myself in a position where I think I do know my stuff and I can be helpful. So the picks and the shovels, the ancillary businesses, I think is a great way for people to get involved in the industry. I also think that, there's a false narrative to hear, especially in New York, that real estate should be secured in advance of the regulations. I caution people about that, especially for folks who will take advantage of the social equity licensing. We know that the state is also committed to providing capital resources and incubator resources for social equity applicants. And so I think it makes a whole lot of sense for people to wait for the regulations to come out before they jump the gun and secure very expensive real estate, so we know exactly what resources will be available to people. That real estate outlay is a huge cost for a lot of people, and we know that the state is committed to providing these resources.
Yeah, well, that's a major key right there, because the real estate is one of the biggest things that I've seen our people have challenges on, access to capital in general. And if people can save money on real estate, that's doing a lot. So I think that's great advice. Kristin, I appreciate you, coming through today. Let people know where can everybody find out more information and follow you in Park Jordan.
Yeah, so we're at parkjordan.com. My email is Kristin, Kristin, Jordan, Jordan, at parkjordan.com. I can't thank you enough for what you do and for highlighting and providing space for people like me, for all of the things that you do for community. We really appreciate you and all that you do. And I just am so blessed to have you in my life. So thank you.
Nah, well, thank you. And I mean it sincerely, as much as and highly as people think about me. Is literally the folks that I saw and was watching before I ever was doing this. And so I always want to continue to elevate that. And we share this platform together. Happy Turkey Day, Kristin. Enjoy your holidays and all of that. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Tahir. Have a good one.
All right, y'all. Yep. Peace out.